Cruise Control streams live every Saturday starting at 10 a.m. Eastern. Watch us live on Facebook and YouTube. Details are in this podcast's episode information.
This is Cruise Control. Your on-air automotive magazine with co-hosts Fred Staub and Les Jackson. Everything you need to know about new and used cars. Industry news. We'll fix or repair your car on the air. Fasten your seatbelts and let us take the wheel. Now, your ride is about to begin. Because you're on Cruise Control. Cruise Control. Cruise Control.
Yes, indeed. Welcome to Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine. As usual, we're here every week live. I'm Les Jackson. The other guy is Fred Staub. You know us. And of course, we always have stuff to tell you about what's going on in the industry. It's as, I guess, chaotic as the kind of everything in the world is at the moment, but we'll sort it out.
Yeah, we sure will, Les, and we've got a great hour of information for you. Selling fewer vehicles and making more money. One manufacturer did that last year. Is this the future of the auto industry? You and I will talk about this. I think we might be looking into the future here.
Supply and demand. Oh, well. Mercedes says its autonomous cars, if your autonomous Mercedes crashes, they'll accept the blame. Meanwhile, over at Tesla, where they don't accept the blame, it's all your fault. Yeah. So we'll tell you about it.
Yeah, and then Polestar, a brand we don't talk about a lot. It is the performance version brand of Volvo, all electric. Well, they have a much more affordable model that is less expensive than Tesla. Which one would you buy, Les Jackson?
I know which one I'd buy. However, we'll get to that. Meanwhile, automotive plants around the country are closing again, and in one case, it's not because of the chip shortage. Just what we need. Another reason.
This is a pretty unique reason, and I think it's one that's kind of near and dear to your heart. But we'll talk about that, and we're going to talk tech. Less expensive carbon fiber from leftover goop. It could happen. Goop, Les.
Goop.
One of your favorite words.
I've invested heavily in goop over the years. I have lots of it. And plus, some say strange noises are coming from the Kia's EV6. Now, what do you suppose that is?
Well, I don't know. We'll talk about this because I think that's one of the things. Have you ever ridden a motorcycle and you're driving along on the highway and you hear cars creaking and that you could just hear?
Yep.
I think people are going to hear a lot of things in cars that they've never heard before with electric car because it's analogous to being in a car that's being towed. I've done that, been towed or pushed, and it's a different experience.
It's strange.
It's strange. So I think maybe that's what's going on here. But we'll talk about that and a whole lot more when we get rolling on this edition of Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine. I'm Fred. He is Les. We are here to bring you on a ride around the automotive industry. So stay tuned to Cruise Control. Check us out at cruisecontrolradio.com. We'll be right back. Cruise Control is your on-air automotive magazine. Check us out at cruisecontrolradio.com.
Cruise Control.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Cruise Control. Well, we thought that basic economics always dictates supply and demand. It turns out that's not true.
No.
Because Volkswagen has learned, as other companies have, that you can sell fewer vehicles and make more money, which is true of the dealers because they're stacking charges on what they have. But
right.
It's true for some of the companies.
Yeah, Volkswagen sold a lot less cars, and they made a lot more money. And I think this is what we're going to see. Now, there was somebody said that the future of the automotive industry is used cars and very, very expensive high-end cars that are probably never bought, they're leased. And I think that might be the way they're going. You know, we've seen with the chip shortage that priorities were given to the higher profit vehicles, the big trucks, the big SUVs. And it's very hard to find a vehicle for $30,000 or even $35,000 nowadays. It's going to get harder as we move to electric vehicles, if they do promise to bring us inexpensive vehicles. Manufacturers like Tesla have promised that. They never really succeeded. GM did it for a little while with the Bolt, but there were other issues there. They're talking about things like the Equinox EV for $30,000. But I think this may be the future of the auto industry. The prices, they have no problem with showing prices 70, 80, 90,000, where that would have been very high-end vehicles not that long ago.
Just 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I tend to disagree a little bit with that, only because the public has been buying 17 million vehicles a year for several years, and the production's been down the last 2. The demand is still there. You know, we're having more people. More people are getting of driving age. So if it was just one company limiting the vehicles they produce, it would work. But there are 30 companies, and they're competing with each other, and somebody's going to make more vehicles.
So you think they will continue to sell vehicles that are in the $20,000 to $35,000 range?
Because there's a demand for them, and somebody's going to meet that demand, which will make everybody else wanting to do it. I just think it'll shake out.
It's interesting.
But I've been wrong.
You know, you look at the Volkswagen van, the ID Buzz. There's some talk this may be a $70,000 product.
Ooh.
And I think that people will just be happy allocating, if they have it, $500 to $700 a month for a vehicle, almost like a cable television subscription.
Yeah, just a continuous outlay.
Yeah, and the idea of owning a new car, especially one that will be very popular, may go by the by. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many people can afford to buy things outright. I mean, many people, you see the younger folks not buying expensive cars, and they live for the car. They're car poor,
That's true. Well, I do believe that the future of car buying for the average person is leasing.
Okay.
I just don't think it makes sense to buy a car if you're middle class. Anymore.
It may not. And, as cars change and new things happen very quickly, you're not locked in. You're only locked in for 3 years. Mm-hmm. And, it will no longer be the pride of ownership per se. So it's interesting. What will that do to the used car market? Well, people will get theoretically quality off-lease products that are only 3 years old, probably well optioned. That's the other trend in this article that we're talking about.
That's right.
People don't buy base model cars anymore. And it's one of the problems. If we were to go out and buy a car, we would not buy a base model car anymore because we like the heated seats. We like the heated steering wheel. We like navigation. We like upgraded stereos. I mean, let's face it. You and I have driven so many cars that we probably wouldn't take a base car,
and we get very spoiled when I actually complain when I get into a press car and I say, "Oh, Sirius XM isn't
Activated. Yeah.
Just,
we're terrible. But hey, we'll be right back after this. Stay tuned.
Cruise Control.
And welcome back to Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine, cruisecontrolradio.com. Check out our Facebook page. We've got some interesting posts up there showing off the Equinox EV. They call it a teaser video, but unless they show the whole vehicle, so I don't know how that's a teaser video. Also, there's a cool documentary coming up on the History Channel tomorrow, if you're around to check it out. And we talk a lot about testing vehicles and developing vehicles. Well, it looks at how GM did that with the Hummer EV. So we have a little bit of a trailer up there on our Facebook page that you can check it out. And while you're there, give us a like. We appreciate that. And, Cruise Control Facebook page. Head on over there and check it out. We got links to all of that, too, on our Facebook page and also all around our social media. So we appreciate it if you do that. So we were talking a little bit about the future of the automotive industry and how leasing cars will become a bigger thing, how cars are getting much more expensive, how it will basically be high-end vehicles potentially, and then just used vehicles, quality used vehicles, and kind of the inexpensive vehicle will go by the wayside because you won't be able to buy it new. And the used vehicles will be these well-equipped, expensive models that have come off of lease. But there's another trend I think that we might see, and I was struck by this article. Struck is probably a weird name, weird thing to say, but this was a CarBuzz article, and it says Mercedes will take the blame for autonomous driving crashes. So it is officially titled the Mercedes-Benz Drive Pilot. The system is level 3 automated driving assistant. It first debuted in Germany in December of 2021 in the new S-Class. But they are paving the way for this level 3 autonomous system to reach U.S. shores by the end of the year. And what it would do, the system operates at speeds below 40 miles per hour on predetermined highway routes, and the car is fully responsible for speed, steering, and braking in traffic, similar to Tesla's autopilot. But the decision here, the difference here is if your vehicle gets into an accident while using this system, Mercedes will take the blame. They're already saying they will take the blame. Meanwhile, over at Tesla, there was another accident in France, and they're not taking the blame for that one. But
no, they never do.
They never do. So they're not doing that. But here's my takeaway from this, and Ford has talked about this. I believe the auto industry will become a player if they don't take over the auto insurance industry for new cars. So you'll buy a new vehicle, and the insurance will be coupled into the pricing of the vehicle, maybe for the first 3 years. And this will be a revenue stream for them. And they'll say it's easy, you buy a new vehicle, we got the insurance all set. It's a coverage, a coverage program. Maybe they bundle it in with maintenance and roadside assistance. And I think they want to move into that field and make some money with this. And it also would mean that it would be a lot easier for them to take the blame for autonomous vehicles if they're insuring it themselves. I think this is something we will see, and it's just another revenue stream, like they're going to do data mining in cars where you go, things you stop at. It's more of a profit center for them, and it's one way for them to offset the development of electric vehicles. What do you think? What say you, fine sir?
I'm inclined to agree with that. I'm sure they would come up with the same insurance levels depending on your risk.
Right.
But it does make sense that, first of all, the insurance would be cheaper because you're cutting out multi-level insurance industries from sales to everything else. And of course, when everyone who owns a Mercedes, for instance, gets their insurance, it's going to cost less money.
And you think about it, this is, of course, the example of this is they do financing for years, and that's how they made money. Why wouldn't they say, hey, we'll finance it, we'll insure it, and it's a great way to be insured because you have this new technology here, and they'll also data mine, and there are revenue streams after the sale. Revenue streams won't just be the concern of dealers looking just to get service. It will be that the manufacturer will have a direct connection to you. And imagine if they gave you something like insurance for 3 years with the purchase of your vehicle. That would be a big savings. Or
that'd be nice.
Maybe they did it it would cost you over $1,000 a year, and they say, I tell you what, we'll do the first 3 years full coverage for $500. How would that be?
Oh man,
you wouldn't mind paying MSRP then if you got that?
Well, no, you wouldn't,
because you're getting the discount. But I think this is certainly the future. More revenue streams beyond it. It could get into anything. I mean, it could get into driveway service from a manufacturer, anything like that. I think you will see this, and it's another change of the auto industry. So let's move on to some new, well, not so new models, but more affordable models from the brand Polestar. Of course, Polestar is the performance version of Volvo. These are all electric vehicles. And there are some EV deals out there now. Polestar debuted the single-motor Polestar 2, and it costs $33,400 in some states like New Jersey. Now, they have a deal in New Jersey. The rear-wheel drive model will be actually less than the actually it's a little bit more than the Tesla. It's $45,900, where a rear-wheel drive Model 3 starts at $42,690. But you get 3 more miles of range. I think they're going to make some believers in this model and in this brand. What do you think, Les?
I think if you look at and drive a Polestar versus the Tesla, you're going to be much more impressed with the Polestar.
Yeah.
Its fit and finish is, state of the art. Driving characteristics, I'm sure, suspension I'm sure are better.
It's safe. It's a Volvo product.
It's safe. And, again, I don't deliberately want to badmouth Tesla all the time, but the fact is they're just not as good as all the other vehicles out on the streets.
Yeah. I definitely would opt for something like this, and I think there's going to be more head-to-head vehicles that will go up against Tesla, and I think it's a good thing. I really do.
Oh, absolutely. Just like the industry has always done.
Yeah. So we'll have to see. I look forward to getting into a Polestar. I have not driven a Polestar yet. Have you?
I haven't either. I'm looking for one in the fleet.
Oh, look, it's a sedan too. So that's nice.
Yeah, look at that. I wonder if you have to learn how to drive that.
Yeah, it's one of those non-SUV things. It's pretty cool. Well, there you have that on the story on Polestar. When we come back, we're going to tell you about automotive plants around the country and the world are closing, and it's not all because of the chip shortage. And we're going to talk tech. Less expensive carbon fiber from Goop. Goop, one of Les Jackson's favorite words.
Yep.
We'll be right back with Cruise Control after this. Stay tuned. We are live every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Watch us on Facebook and YouTube. Details are in this podcast's episode information.
Cruise Control.
Hey, welcome back to Cruise Control. I'm Les. He's Fred. We're not closing.
Well, that's good news.
But apparently everyone else in the industry is. For various reasons. The chip shortage is bad enough.
Well,
but now we're getting weird stuff.
Well, let's start with this car, the Corvette.
Yep.
That has seen production problems, since the beginning of the C8, and now there are more delays on the way. They said they should prepare. People with vehicles ordered should prepare for more delays. First off, you can't get the magnetic ride control option. It was temporarily removed from the list of options because of chip shortage. Then there was a complete halt to production, according to Automotive News, I believe last week, due to catastrophic supply chain constraints. There were front and rear spoilers that were not available, tire pressure sensors that were not available. Last year, by the way, Chevrolet was able to sell 33,041 Corvettes, which is a 53% increase over 2019. But now people just can't get them. And,
wow.
And I would venture a guess that they'll probably be closing the 2022 order banks if they have not done so already, and moving on to 2023. I wonder how many people ordered a 2021, got pushed to 22, and might get pushed to 2023. What do you think?
I'm sure it's thousands.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's a heck of a car.
Worth waiting for.
Yeah, it is. I see actually a fair number of them on the road.
Well, over at Mazda, they've had to close their productions, their factories. And this is actually due to getting parts from Ukraine because they can't get parts for that. Mazda announced it would be stopping operations at two facilities in Japan, Hiroshima and Yamaguchi. They put together the Mazda MX-5 Miata, the CX-5, and the 124 Spider range for Fiat, which, by the way, I like better than the Mazda.
I do too. I think it looks better. It drives better.
Yeah.
Yep.
The plant. They say the plant will be shut down April 4th and 5th. It lacks components needed for assembly. It didn't say what parts they were short on. But
well, if they're coming from the Ukraine, I think you can pretty well cancel those parts.
I think they build a lot of wiring harnesses in the Ukraine, if I remember correctly. So that is closed up, and then two of those plants were closed for shortages of parts. But then there was another one where a Mercedes plant was closed because a leopard got inside of it. That's interesting, isn't it?
Well, I love cats. And I would welcome a leopard.
Not in the workplace, though. Yeah, I don't.
But I think a fair number of people would be running out the doors.
Yeah. This happened. Where did this happen? In India, I believe. And they're responsible for producing cars like the S-Class. It was closed for a full 4 hours. due to a 3-year-old male leopard finding its way into the manufacturing section of the plant. It's a beautiful looking cat.
Well, I would much rather have a leopard than a 12-foot cobra.
Right. I mean, the leopard, I think, probably was like, where am I? Someone said in the comments that he was checking on if his car was built. He's waiting on it. It's like, is that mine?
I think he was probably tasting some of the leather seats.
Probably. Yeah. And I pretty much, if the leopard says, I like that saddle leather interior and I'm going to chew on the head restraint, you'd be like, yeah, go ahead, knock yourself out. It's all good. But it was a 100-acre plant in India, and this animal got in there. So, but the good news is they tranquilized him and moved him to somewhere safe. He'll be checked out and released. So that's good news. But just a kind of an interesting reason to shut down a plant. But
it is.
When do you think the chip shortage will end? I mean, I think we've been talking about this for quite some time now.
Yes. I am told by late in the year, it's going to be leveled off. Okay. And then it'll take up to 6 months next year to catch up.
So we're going to see dealers charging over MSRP for a while.
Yeah.
I wonder how, when it is over and inventory is back up to normal standards, or at least making its way to normal standards, how soon will dealers say, okay, we're going to go back to at least selling at MSRP? I have a feeling they don't want to go back to that, and they won't.
They don't. They've been talking about this at dealer meetings. They don't.
Yeah.
But they'll have to, because, again, the manufacturers are going to make the vehicles.
So somebody will sell it for less, and if you don't sell it for less...
What's going to happen is they're going to lose their ability to dominate sales. And you and I will be able to buy directly from the manufacturers.
Yeah. Let's talk a little tech, and this involves a word you love so much. It's part of your vernacular. Goop. Goop, right. So, of course, we all know about carbon fiber. We all know about vehicles. They want to lightweight them. We were talking last hour about Chrysler switching to a straight 6 with an aluminum block to move away from a cast iron block V8. Lightens it up by 200 pounds. Everyone wants to get the weight out of cars, but they want them to be strong. They want them to be safe when they are crash tested. But carbon fiber has been the thing of exotics. It is certainly race car technology that has been brought down to passenger cars, but only high-end passenger cars. And the problem is it's very expensive. You look at carbon fiber is probably about $10 to $12 per pound. That's a lot more than steel that is 75 cents a pound, or aluminum that is $2 a pound. So scientists are working on a way to build carbon fiber a lot cheaper, bring down that price, and it has to do with something called pitch, which is this goop that is the lowest quality material that comes out of refining fuel. And they call it a hodgepodge of mixed heavy hydrocarbons.
It's similar to asphalt.
Okay. Similar to asphalt. And so there's a blob of this stuff.
Yeah, there's just this and smelly, nasty stuff.
And normally they can't get rid of it. They don't know what to do with it. But this company and researchers are talking about turning this into very fine, consistent fibers using a polymerization process.
Right.
To create...
And it creates polyacrylonitrile, which is like a carbon fiber.
Out of waste. basically.
Yeah.
Right. So this seems like a smart way to go, because what do they do with that waste? How do they get rid of it? Probably burn it.
They don't burn it anymore.
Mhm.
They just they try to basically mix it into asphalt and use it that way.
So I think this has some promise. It's a way of, I'm sure they would love to be able to sell off this goop to someone, and they take it
Sure.
away and make it into carbon fiber, because obviously to get the weight down even further on vehicles, carbon fiber is super strong, and to get the weight down even, and if you could knock out another 200 pounds, think of what that would do for electric range, right?
Oh yeah, that would really revolutionize that whole industry.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some more tech while we're on it, Les, because we love to talk tech here. And I'll tie this in to a study, an IIHS study, when we come back, and it involves visibility in SUVs. So we'll talk about that when we return
Important.
on Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine. We'll also talk about strange noises coming from one of Kia's EV6 models, and that could be something we might experience with electric vehicles. So we'll talk about that. Cruise Control is your on-air automotive magazine. Check us out at cruisecontrolradio.com.
Cruise Control.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Cruise Control. We're doing some talk tech. We've already talked about goop.
And that's the ultimate tech thing, isn't it?
Listen, if you can make goop valuable, then that's it.
Yeah.
In this case, there's a GM is working on a transparent A-pillar. Now, A-pillar is the pillar that holds the windshield and holds the door locks or door hinges.
Mhm.
It's the most important structural item in the car.
They've gotten wider, too, on many cars.
They sure have.
This could be used on the Camaro. It's got a foot-wide A-pillar. It's like having a telephone pole in your peripheral vision if you try to turn. The idea is to have like a window in the A-pillar, right? That you can look through the A-pillar and see what's going on there. They would have glass, which they already have. You and I have driven vehicles where the whole roof can go transparent. If it can automatically stop glare. It can automatically it can defog and de-ice itself. And the pillar support could be interwoven with carbon fiber or something similar to add greater robustness for the area where this window is. Maybe they could use goop-based carbon fiber. What do you think?
Well, possibly. Remember, though, the A-pillar has to support the roof and a rollover and everything else. So this clear A-pillar has to be incredibly strong.
Incredibly strong. Now, you couple this with a IIHS study, Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. They're saying pedestrians are at higher risk when SUVs are cornering because you cannot see them. Wouldn't a window in the A-pillar be handy to help with that? So this seems like, I think we will start seeing these things pretty quickly. They'll be stylistic. Maybe it's like, it doesn't have to be super wide. It might be like instead of just body color, there will be some kind of glass, or maybe on the outside it will just look black, but you can see through it, right?
Yeah, which I don't know how they'll eliminate distortion, but the fact that you can just see through it, it gives you some chance of seeing something in your way.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought about that, by the way, getting back to the study, that I find a lot of people that are driving larger SUVs or pickup trucks or something, they just can't handle them. It's just too much vehicle for what they need, you know?
You're right. And they drive kind of up like this, and they look uncomfortable while they're driving.
Have difficulty backing it in, have to take 5 attempts at backing into a parking spot.
Even though they've got backup cameras that'll show them perfectly.
Yeah. It's just, you just don't. Some people do need it, and maybe you like it. That's fine. It's good. But in many cases, I find people are in bigger vehicles than the space that they use, you know, in small towns and that. So interesting technology
pet peeve
there.
Of
This is another story. I think we might hear something about this, more about this with other electric cars. This comes from the Korean Car Blog. I know you're a big reader of the Korean Car Blog. Isn't that true, Les?
Every morning with coffee.
Yeah. Okay. So the Korean Car Blog is reporting that there are people experiencing strange noises coming from the Kia EV6. Now, the Kia EV6 is an affordable all-electric vehicle, kind of like a small crossover. One driver said, "The sound lingers in my ear, and I hear the sound made by the car even in my daily life." And another says they have to keep music on constantly to avoid the strange noise. Another one says it's a noise of about 6.3 kilohertz. Obviously, he must have calibrated ears, or he has some equipment to calibrate that. And it is low frequency, but is high enough to be heard above ambient noise. The only thing I can think of, have you ever experienced this back in the old days of tube TVs? Certain TVs would make a high pitched sound, and it would annoy the heck out of me. I couldn't stand it.
Yeah.
And you know, even if you turned the volume up, it was always there. And I think people might be experiencing this now. Some of these sounds may have been around in cars. We just wouldn't hear it with the engine running. But I don't poo-poo this at all, because that could be really, really annoying.
Listen. Yeah.
They could probably mask it somehow, the sound, or just locate what's causing it and you know, change something in the way it's getting power, or filter it or something, wouldn't you say?
Well, they'll have to. There's sound, as I well know, because I'm hypersensitive to sound. It causes a lot of physiological problems with people. It can cause depression or anxiety. It actually can cause anger. And it's not something to be taken lightly. If this is bothering people, they'll get rid of the car.
Yeah, they will get rid of the car because it will just be uncomfortable. Right now, it's time for me to say I'm Fred Staub.
I'm Les Jackson.
We're going to see you down the road.
Bye.
Cruise Control streams live every Saturday starting at 10 a.m. Eastern. Watch us live on Facebook and YouTube. Details are in this podcast's episode information.